Welcome to the Inspired Choices TV show. I am your host, Christine McIver, and we have a fabulous guest, actually a returning guest here in the studio. I have with me Lisa Benitz. Lisa Benitz, welcome to the show. Welcome to the studio today. I'm so happy you came all the way from
Calgary, Alberta.
Calgary, Alberta, to be with us here in the studio. Is fabulous. I'm going to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to dive into your story and where you are today in the world.
Thank you.
So Lisa is a space whisperer, interior and exterior space specialist, an international facilitator, coach, speaker, radio host, and writer. Lisa has turned her love of working with spaces into a unique business that creates actionable results for people in all sectors of their lives. She is the founder of Creating Conscious Spaces, a customized workshop facilitated in many languages, including English, Portuguese, French, German, Dutch, Spanish, and Chinese. And that continues to grow, and it's reaching the world. Lisa continues to inspire others around the world to learn the practice of how perceiving and connecting with their environments and others can create a greater future for all. Lisa's known for changing the world one space at a time, and you can find Lisa at her website, infiniteenergies.ca. I'm really glad you're here, Lisa. The last time, it's been a number of years since you've been here with me in the TV studio, and you have been creating so much in the world. But let's start at the very beginning. So you were born and raised in Ontario, Ontario, Canada, and your father had an antique shop.
He did.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell us your experience when you would go into the antique shop.
Wow, okay, so the antique shop came later in life. What we did as kids is we actually would go to antique shows with our parents and start collecting, and then it kept growing and growing and growing, and then it turned into an antique shop later in my father's years. But one of the things that I was aware of is that there was this energy behind all of these items, these antiques, and I thought everybody could read the energy like I could, like it was a story. If it was a chair or a table, I would read the energy of what had previously happened, who had previously owned it. And I also, my dad's love of pieces of furniture, also, it just got reflected to me. And somewhere in that whole process, I realized throughout my early teen years is that I was different from a lot of people on how I could read not only the furniture, the artwork, but also the spaces. And that's been the gift for me.
Wonderful. So you started to discover that you were different. You were different. What do you remember the moment that this kind of started? Like, was there a specific event that started to wake you up to that awareness?
Wow. So I suppose it was just having the friends calling me up and saying, could you come over and tell me what's going on with my space? And I studied interiors because I was always looking for how to fit in and looking for interior design and interior decorating, and then I studied feng shui because that was speaking to energy, and I thought, well, that makes sense.
So you were attracted to those teachings?
I was always attracted to anything regarding space. And then the people in my life that got attracted to my work, I was getting pulled in by architects. I had an interest in connecting with contractors who also had this awareness around spaces, realtors. And so if I look at all the people in my life, it's always been around people and
that had a connection to spaces
with their careers. And so for me, when I would talk to them, there would be this connection that we would all get it. And then finally, I don't even know exactly when I stopped trying to be something other than me. That's when somebody coined me the space whisperer. There was a client that was on the other side of the world, and she was having some challenges, and doors were closing and making sounds, and so it sounded very bizarre, but I just asked her a few questions. on was this a new house, was this a new build. It was in Thailand, and what had occurred was after the tsunami, they had built a new house, and there was actually a spirit in the house that was still believing that the tsunami was coming. And it was like instantly it came to me. I said, is this a new build? Is this a new house? She said, yes, actually it is. Is it close to the beach? Yes. And then I said, just tell the spirit that the tsunami's gone, you're safe, and they don't need to be on the watch. And everything stopped, the banging of the doors, and she said, I don't know what it is, but then she said, you're a space whisperer. And that's what I was like, oh, actually, I like that. That was the first time that a label resonated with everything that I've practiced and done.
It felt like you.
It felt exactly like me.
Okay, so you get this awareness about Space Whisperer. And at what point, Lisa, did you kind of get the conscious awareness that you had the ability with spaces beyond the education that you'd been attracted to?
So there was a moment when I realized that I actually didn't need a label, as they say. I didn't need to have to follow a specific calling. And I remember somebody saying, well, you're not this, you're not that, and yet the term space whispering seemed to marry all the research that I had done. But at the end of the day, I realized that I actually just had to follow my awareness and my knowing with what was being required with a space. And so if I walked into a room with 50 people, there are a number of spaces that are going to be talking to me energetically. And so somebody would come to me and start talking to me, and then it would be like matching the space and the person. And they were saying, I don't know what it is about you, but I want to talk to you. And then eventually they start talking about their space, and it's like this download of information that I get, which is really amazing. And sometimes I'll share things with them and sometimes I won't. But the more that I've been playing in that arena of really letting it go, the more that my intuitiveness, my psychic abilities, whatever you want to label it as, has just been turned up. And so the connection with spaces for me is magical.
So what have you been letting go of?
Judgment.
Okay.
Judgment about people saying, you can't be this, you haven't done this, you haven't got the degree in this. And so for me, it's you don't require that. When you are in the zone, I could be working or teaching classes and I get energized. I don't get exhausted. When you're in the zone of what you love to do,
right,
and you know it without a shadow of a doubt, the more that you are in that zone, the more the spaces communicate with me, and clients consistently are saying, I don't know how you know what you know, but that is so true for me.
Lisa, what's the craziest thing that you've discovered with this capacity of yours?
Okay, so about a year ago, I was in Paris and I was teaching a class. It was just an evening class, maybe 2 hours. And there was a woman that came into the class, and she was quiet. She asked a few questions and she left. And sometimes we think that we're not making a difference in the world, or maybe they didn't get it. And she reached out to me through social media and she says, I'm wondering if you could assist me. I work with a company that represents a bunch of properties. It's a chateau. And so she said, would you assist me? The client is having some challenges renting this particular chateau. And I said, great. So we booked a session and we put aside an hour of time. And I said, she said, is there anything I need to do, prepare? I said, no, just we're going to have a conversation. I'll ask you some questions and we'll go from there. So it was through Zoom. And so we saw each other. I did not see the space. And I asked her some questions. And immediately I got the information from this chateau that there was an actual spirit, entity, ghost, that was living in this this chateau. I think it was around the 1600s, and so from that, this woman who was still living in the space, not knowing that she didn't have a body, and she was sort of like a bossy pants. She was the head cook, head chef of the chateau in her day, and so she was frustrated because she didn't want people to come in and rent the place. So she was preventing people renting it.
Oh.
And so when I had this conversation and connected with her, I said, look.
So you're able to connect with the spirits?
I'm, yeah, just like you and I are. And
Okay.
I said, look, you can stay or you can go, but you don't have a body. And if you want to stay, then you have to be gracious and welcoming, and so the energy shifted. And then there were some other things that we connected with within the chateau. So she was excited, and thank you very much, and that's the client. And then I said at the very end, I said, hey, would you mind sending some photos? And if any of you have ever been to France and you've ever seen Versailles, this wasn't just your typical little chateau. This was a massive, gorgeous, grand castle. So, you know, sometimes I love the French, but they don't sort of make it this big grandiose place. And so, and I don't post photos of clients that are requesting not to have photos, because I work in spaces around the world, and I'm very, very aware of not posting.
Oh, privacy.
Privacy.
Yes, of course.
And so when I saw this, I was thrilled that I didn't see the photos, because you don't want to in any way change how you address something. Mm-hmm. A space is a space is a space, whether it's a little box or a massive castle. So for me, I was so excited to know that there was a change. There was something that had shifted for her and the client.
That's wonderful.
So there's lots of stories like that.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, Lisa, we're going to go for a break. And when we get back, I want to hear more about what it is that you're doing in the world, in addition to your capacities. It's very, very fascinating.
Thank
so
you.
everyone, stay tuned. We'll be back with Lisa Benitz right after this break. Have you thought about bringing your voice to the world? Are you looking to have a global platform that you can connect with? At Inspired Choices Network, we create an opportunity for you to bring your voice each and every week to a global platform. We support you, we train you, we bring your podcast out to more than 50 platforms. We are a network of building a community where we're bringing conscious voices to the world. If you're looking to have more of an opportunity, if you're looking to bring what you know to the world, do connect with us. You can contact us at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com, or you can send an email to becomingahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. We'll have a conversation and we'll show you what truly is possible. Welcome back, everyone. We have Lisa Benitz in the studio today. We're talking about her capacity with spaces. So Lisa, you're known as the Space Whisperer, and you have created this class called Creating Conscious Spaces. What in the world does that mean? Creating conscious spaces. That sounds really out there, like you're smoking something.
Well, that came to me when one of my sort of targets in the world is to change the world one space at a time, and really invite people to raise consciousness with regard to their spaces. And so what does that mean? It's actually, instead of coming home from work, dropping your briefcase down, gliding through your entranceway of your home, and seeing maybe piles of things that you put out 2 or 3 weeks ago, and you're just ignoring it, and you walk in and you come into the kitchen and you get yourself a drink and you sit down or you make yourself dinner. You're not actually connecting with your space.
Okay.
And so spaces are truly a reflection of what is going on in our lives. And what I invite people to do is to actually start to empower them to see, if you are going through a rough patch in your life, if you're going through a divorce, if you're going through an illness, if you have had some challenges with your career,
Big changes
big
in your life.
changes in your life. Your space is always a reflection of what's going on.
Interesting.
It will never lie. And even for those people that have this, what we call a perfectly stylized home, there's always stuff that is hiding in a closet or under a bed. People hide things. Consciously, they put them out of sight, out of mind, and yet all of those items are having this conversation and either pulling you down or weighing you down. And so it's really, really important to start to gift that energetic exchange to people and have them wake up, and because I can't be everywhere. So for me to actually have people around the world that are also sharing this knowledge and
Yes.
showing people in their culture and their language how they can change their lives through their spaces, magic starts to happen. And I've seen this hundreds and hundreds and thousands of times with people, and they just go, you said one thing to me and it shifted my whole space.
You've been teaching around the world for 5 years now?
5-6 years?
5-6 years.
Yeah.
You do a lot of this, like you said, through Zoom, whether you're doing a one-on-one with people or you're doing a class, so you don't have to physically be in their space to be able to connect to it. Now, you have a radio show on the Inspired Choices Network called Infinite Energies with Lisa Benitz, and I have produced many of your shows and listened to many of your shows. You still blow my mind. You still blow my mind when someone calls in with a question and you ask them really kind of like out there in left field, like, where the heck did she come up with that question? And they will be like, oh my gosh, how did you know? Or, yes, I've been experiencing that, or I have noticed that, or I've been avoiding that, or there's one story in particular where you talk about someone invited you into their home, and they did everything they could to avoid taking you into one particular room. It's so fascinating that you can pick up on this so easily. Is that really something that you can teach other people, Lisa, to read these types of energies? Because to me, it sounds like this is something that you were born with.
Definitely, I was born with, and in fact, there was this curiosity with spaces when I was a little girl. I was a snooper. So any of my old friends, I'm the one that looked in all your closets, and I just did. When I stayed at people's homes, I would be the one that would open the cupboard, and now people pay me to snoop, which is kind of fun. And now
Let me snoop for you.
Yeah, and so could be a new tagline.
That's right.
What I'm aware of, however, is that people knowing what I can read and energetically know, they actually openly invite me into the places that most people aren't willing maybe to show.
Okay.
And so, because I can call bullshit on anything. I can say, look, your life isn't perfect. No, there is always something there that we can shift. It's like I call it, it's like a acupuncture treatment for your space.
Okay.
And so we change our clothes, we change our hair, we shift our style over the years. And so how many of these spaces out there are in a bit of a time warp, and they haven't changed things, or they get labeled by an interior designer to come in, and the interior designer does up a space and they say, well, this is it, and they try to keep it
Maintain that. Makes it so static, though.
Makes it static, and that's not what we deal with on a day-to-day basis when we're out there driving.
Our lives are not static.
We're not. We change the type of food that we eat. We change, our bodies grow and they go down. And so our spaces are breathing and living entities. And if we can honor our spaces as often as we honor our bodies and our businesses and our relationships, then you're going to find a much more cohesive space that is aligning with what you're desiring in your life today, not what it was 20 years ago.
Or 50
Or 50 years ago.
Right.
Because I've had clients who have gone away, traveled, and they felt amazing, and then they come home and everything, they start getting aches and pains and headaches, and they get depressed, and they go, I don't know what it is. I was having an amazing time, life was great when I was traveling, and then I come back to this space, and it's literally pulling you into a past energy. Yeah.
So this is something that you can, in fact, teach to others, Lisa?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, when I'm listening to you talk with people or even explaining things, I can understand it for that individual, right? So I can say, oh, I can see that for that person and so on. And when you've worked with me, with my space, I understand it because it's part of my experience. It's challenging for me to imagine reading somebody else's space.
So that's the gift. It's like the doctor or the builder. They're great with everyone else's space. Often they're not great with their own. So I call myself out on my stuff every so often. And one of my great tools for myself is to photograph my space and put it up on my big computer screen so that I can go, oh, right, I need to shift something, because we're not perfect by any means.
So is that something you use when you're teaching? Is that a tool you use when you're teaching other people?
I get them to first they work with their space. As soon as they can start to read their space and be honest about what's going on, then it actually, it's like giving them permission to go into someone else's space. And we're all snoopy, we're all curious. And I guarantee that everyone out there has opened up the medicine cabinet in somebody's bathroom just to sort of see what's going on. I can guarantee it. You're smiling because I know.
I'm smiling because something you said earlier just clicked. So
Yeah.
Right, but we do. We check things out.
Yeah.
That's very fascinating.
Yeah.
So Lisa, what's the future of infinite energies and creating conscious spaces? What are you seeing next?
Well, thank you. This is great. We're expanding. We have more classes and worldwide, and my target is to have a European division and an Asian division and a North American division where we have facilitators and also consultants who actually are hired to go in different people's homes in the countries to actually assist people, because there's one of me. So it's not possible for me to be in every single.
So you're training people. You're training people
to facilitate,
and that
be a
you can also go into workspaces as well, not just homes, right?
Absolutely.
Even cars. Like you can go into any space.
Any space. So I've had corporations who have called upon me and said, look, we're having challenges keeping staff, or there's a lot of staff turnaround, unwellness. And so literally I can go into a company and whether I'm physically there or connecting with the people from afar, and I connect with that company, that corporation, that business. And the first question I would ask is, well, what are you desiring for your company for the future? And then I after talking to the CEO or the president, then I say, thank you, I'm now going to talk to the staff. And sometimes they're like, what? But the staff are the ones that actually have the pulse of what's going on in a day-to-day basis within the company. And if you can get that information out of them, they'll often be the ones that are, and they're very aware, actually. The staff are usually really aware of the space, but they haven't had a voice to speak what's going on. So.
I think that's really interesting. You really do give voices to spaces. You know, you might be working with the owners, you might be working with new facilitators in the world, but you are giving a voice to the spaces and, you know, not seeing the spaces separate, which I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
You know, and make them static.
Yeah.
Right, like that you've talked about. I think that's really, really interesting. You have a book that you're in the process of writing right now, right? I can't wait for that book to come out. That's going to be fabulous. Lisa, this is exciting. And to have been with you on your journey and to watch you really continuously challenge yourself to grow and to hone your capacities and to really step up and bring your voice to the world and to change one space at a time. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure, and I can't wait for us to have your book in the world as well.
I'm excited.
Thank you for coming today, and you'll have to come back to the studio when you have your book. Well,
I will be here when the book is out. Stay tuned. I'm excited.
That's exciting. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Do check Lisa out at infiniteenergies.ca. You can absolutely connect with her one-on-one or join her in a class around the world. She has been into many, many spaces. So until next week, please remember you can always make another choice. Come back. We'll have another guest for you to enjoy. Bye for now.